Do you know how much your voice has changed?
No.
So when I first met you, this was before you stepped into what was called erotic energy as part of your practice. You didn't speak from the same parts of your body, right? You speak way more from, well, your hoo-ha and like from your gut than you did before. And so your voice resonates very differently. Like when you're saying all of the invocations you just said, your intonations are entirely different than Emily of 9 years ago.
Amen.
Nice work.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like a completely different person now than I did 10 years ago. And I want to celebrate you for, and really thank you more than celebrate you, but thank you for seeing me, even through my perfectionism, even through my proving, even through my Broadway, even through my wounding of the masculine.
A perfectionist Broadway? I can't imagine, Emily. Can you believe that there's been 500 million downloads of The Human Upgrade?
500 million.
That's more than 100 full lifetimes.
And 500 million.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, congratulations.
Well, thanks. If the content was worthy, I did something good. Otherwise, I'm a mass murderer.
Because of wasting people's time.
Waste 100 lifetimes if all I did was just jabber. So I always have this really high standard that it had better be worth more than the hour you spend with me.
Amen. And I will say for me personally, like the seeds that have been planted through your work, through your books, through the podcast have grown roots, have grown trees, have impacted the way that my relationship with food, my relationship with monitoring my body. And I know that I'm so deeply not alone in that. Like you really are the father of biohacking. And now it seems like obvious. You know, we're like, of course you're going to monitor your data. And of course you're not going to eat this food. And of course you would be tracking this. But it's hard for people to realize now, especially those under 40, that this was weird when you started.
Oh, people got really mad when I talked about this. When I said you can upgrade your biology, when I said you can hack your health, these were not words humans spoke. And when I would say those, people would get enraged.
Why?
I think there's a internal system that says, if I'm not in charge, then I'm not responsible. It's this deep-rooted...
I can be a victim.
Yeah, it's a victim mindset. And being a victim is very powerful.
How?
Well, it's called victim narcissism. And if you can be part of a victim group, then you're not responsible for anything. And you can channel all this, how dare they energy, which is entirely unhealthy for you. And it stops spiritual progress and it ruins your health. So getting stuck in that victim mindset, but let's see, what's been cultivating a victim mindset for a long time? The big pharma industry, the medical industry, back when doctors were, well, I have a white lab coat. It's like a priest coat. And I will tell you when you will die kind of a vibe. So when people started waking up and saying, I'm in charge of me, and it's not my boss, it's not my employer, it's not my insurance company, it's not my doctor, it's not my government, and it's not my daddy. It's just me. And I can ask any of those for help at any time, but I am ultimately responsible. That's a huge waking up moment that's more than about your health.
Yeah. And so it feels like a level of sovereignty, like sovereignty over one's body, sovereignty over one's food, that really is more of a spiritual practice. And, you know, you have so many podcasts, so many books that I feel like we don't need to revisit like the religion of biohacking or like why everyone should be biohacking or why everyone isn't biohacking. But I'm very curious to dive into more of the spiritual side of biohacking and the sovereignty that happens. And I'm also really excited selfishly that this book you have coming out is called Heavily Meditated, because this has been my dharma, my life's work. What I've dedicated the past 16 years of my existence to is raising consciousness specifically through meditation and now through sacred sexuality. And so I'm just excited that your steam engine and all of the research that you have access to is now being pointed towards meditation. And so can you give us a window into, because I think people understand at this point food, exercise, body data monitoring, but can you, what is the spiritual side of biohacking?
I like to drop hints. So how did I discover Bulletproof Coffee? I'm on the slopes of Mount Kailash, the holiest mountain in the world in remote Western Tibet at 18,000 feet elevation. and a little Tibetan woman gives me a bowl of yak butter tea. And
what did it taste like?
Kind of like feta. It's not great.
Okay. Like a little salty.
A little salty. And it woke my brain up in a really powerful way. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to figure out what just happened because I should be feeling like I'm dying. But here's what most
Because of the altitude and the cold.
Yeah, the altitude cold, 10 degrees below zero. I mean, I was pretty miserable. And I felt like dancing after I had this. I'm like, this is not possible. It's just butter and warm water. Like, what is going on? And I cracked the code eventually, and Bulletproof became a thing. And just for the record, I'm not involved with Bulletproof at all. My new coffee company is Danger Coffee, because who knows what you might do? That kind of good danger.
I like the idea of good danger.
But here's what most people miss. I was on the side of the holiest mountain in the world.
Like, what were you doing there? What brought you there?
Oh my gosh. And when I tell of the origin and the kind of work that I've done, in 1999, I went down to Peru and I said, I want to try ayahuasca. And I asked around and they looked at me and they said, you're white. And I said, yeah, I noticed. And they said,
who, me?
Yeah. They said, it's for locals. You won't like it. And I said, no, I've done my work and I found a shaman and I had an experience. And you know, I'm.
You had already done Aya before going to Peru? No. Okay.
I mean, nobody did Aya in 1999.
Yeah, you were doing it in Topanga in 1999.
Yeah, even then, I don't think it was common. It was pretty rare. So I went down there to seek it out, and that should be a big sort of thing to notice if you're saying, well, what's the why behind biohacking? I've also run a longevity nonprofit group starting in my mid-20s. I ran it for like 8 years or something. And so I've studied longevity in detail. I've studied consciousness with experts and gurus around the world. And I've done a huge amount of very esoteric training. I've done shamanic initiatory training. And I'm also a nerd.
You?
So the first blog when I started, it was called The Bulletproof Executive. And I wrote words that were specific for engineers and hedge fund managers and high performance people, the least likely to meditate people on the planet, to trick them into becoming more conscious.
That's, you and I have this in common. I think maybe this is why we resonated with each other, because I was like, oh, I don't care why people start meditating. I don't care if you start meditating because you want less cellulite and you want to make more money and you want to have better sex. And that's very much what I did. I wrapped the medicine in the candy coating of, hey, meditation for extraordinary performance. And
it was a brilliant idea that you had to do that, because the why is what gets people involved.
Yeah.
And one of the other reasons that I created biohacking is that I'd hung out with bodybuilders who are profoundly good at changing human physiology. I've hung out with neuroscientists. I run a mystery school neuroscientist thing called 40 Years of Zen. And I've also hung out with longevity people, but they never talked with each other. And I've hung out with gurus and they don't talk. So I wanted to bring all these together. But the biggest challenge was, if someone had told me all of this when I was 19 years old, it would have saved me $2.5 million and 20 years of pretty substantial suffering. So how do I reframe longevity and consciousness in a way that would be incredibly attractive to a 19-year-old like I was writing for myself? And you can talk about what it is, but frankly, no one cares. Like, I'm an engineer. I'm creating the internet. I'm busy. Leave me alone, right? Or I'm an executive. I have to hit my numbers. So the why wasn't there. And so biohacking, the definition, and I actually spent a lot of time when I was in Tibet coming up with the definition. It was the art and science of changing the environment around you and inside of you so you have full control of your own biology.
Have you ever had a moment where nature just drops the exact message you need exactly when you need it? Maybe it's a reminder to slow down. Maybe it's a fresh perspective on something you've been stuck on, or just the perfect nudge to help you embody your highest self. Well, that is what I want to give you every single week. A dose of Ziva straight from my heart to yours. When you sign up for my emails, you're going to get first access to the downloads that are coming straight into my heart, access to science-backed tools to help you stress less and feel more alive. You're going to get a sneak peek into my personal practice and all the perks that we only share with our Ziva insiders. You're going to get podcast announcement and exclusive offers and invitation to our events before anyone else. And because I love a good thank you gift, if you sign up right now, you're going to get a special welcome gift just for signing up, and it's totally free. It just might be the very best thing you do for yourself today. So you can go to the link in the show notes or go to zivameditation.com/whythis to get a beautiful welcome gift and to receive these transmissions from my heart to yours every single week. So head to zivameditation.com/whythis, and I will see you in your inbox. And talking about that word control, because I'm like here for this, like adapt the environment externally and internally. Yes. But the word control, I feel a little bit of a contraction because I've always thought that control is opposed to evolution. But really, when I hear you talk about it, what I hear is sovereignty, and which feels like a co-creation between the individuality and totality.
If you have control of your biology, you have full awareness and full consciousness, and then you are free to evolve. If you do not have control and therefore awareness, then you are not free to evolve.
But could you make the argument, and I know we're getting into semantics here, but that we don't have control over anything?
You can make the argument that we don't have control over anything, at which point I could pull out shaman tools and I could directly manipulate your energetic state. And you know very well I could do that. And I know you could do that to me. And we could both probably block each other.
Just have like a Star Wars shield and lightsaber war.
But am I speaking the truth?
Yeah.
Okay. So we do have control. We do not recognize how much control we actually have.
But to me, that feels like power, right? It's like working with nature. You're allowing nature to use you as a vessel to channel those things versus control to me feels like a kid in the front of the shopping cart at the grocery store with the plastic steering wheel. There's like a human illusion of control when actually nature is the one pushing the shopping cart. And I know I've totally derailed us from your original definition of biohacking.
This is fantastic and fun. So think about it like this. How many people block nature from helping them?
Almost all of them.
Are they doing it consciously?
No.
They are not in control. If you are in control, you can choose what to allow into your field to help you evolve. If you are not in control, you are either not aware or you don't know how to control it, which means you could be missing all sorts of beautiful, amazing opportunities in the world around you. Right? You walk into a room and there's someone there who you really vibe with who could connect with you energetically. Maybe they're a healer, maybe they're just someone who could be a friend. But because outside of your awareness and therefore outside of your control, you have some old trauma response. And so you're closed off and it doesn't work and you just are blind to the whole thing. In order to have control, you must have awareness. If you have awareness without control, well, then anyone can do anything they want to you. And the more conscious you become, the more aware you become of intentional or unintentional attempts to manipulate your consciousness. And I would like to say to manipulate it against your will. It's not against your will because you're not even aware enough to know what's going on. So you must have awareness and you must have control because without control, you don't have discernment.
Yeah, to me, I think for me personally, I might just replace control with agency. Because to me, agency is like, I am aware, I'm dexterous enough to know what to let in, what to work with.
But if you're deciding whether to let it in or not, are you not in control?
I don't know. And like, this is 100% semantics and we can move on. But to me, something about the word agency implies a level of humility that you are working with the laws of nature and not actually like manipulating the laws of nature.
Why would you not manipulate the laws of nature? The laws of nature want you to die at 85. Fuck nature.
I don't think that's nature. I think that is humans acting out of accordance with nature. I think that that's us losing our way and not acting in accordance with the laws of of evolution. And I think once you understand that, you can, and I think this is one of the fundamental cores of the Vedas, is that you understand the laws of nature and you allow them to help you get to where you want to go. We're not.
Gosh, you sound like a biohacker. Change the environment around you so you have full control of your biology?
I am a biohacker. I mean, I don't look this good at 45 on accident, Dave. I don't have a higher sex drive than I've ever had in my whole life at 45 on accident. You know, I'm like in better shape now than I was on Broadway. It's not on accident.
Isn't it great?
It's great. Life just keeps getting better and better. Okay, so back to you. The spiritual side of biohacking.
This is so fun. Whether it's agency or control, there's a word we haven't talked about that you're going to love. That's a part of having control, at least in my world. It's surrender.
See, that's it.
Okay.
That's the humility of
if you're in control, you can choose to surrender, but you don't have to be surrendered when it's not the right thing to do.
Which feels very BDSM, that the sub is actually the one in power, that the one who is surrendering is the one who actually has all the power. And I think that this is maybe what I'm getting to, that if you are humble enough to acknowledge that we are one wave on the giant ocean that is consciousness, that this is actually where the power comes from.
Are you sure?
I am here for the debate. I am.
The way you tipped your head just then was brilliant. You're like,
I'm happy to have a counter argument. Let's hear it.
I'm just so distracted by your response to it that I forgot what I said. Like I'm so amused. Tell me whatever that point was, and I'll tell you why.
Well, I think that the point we were debating was, if you are in surrender, then you actually have the power or the agency. And then I was likening that to BDSM, where the sub has the agency, the sub has the power, whereas a lot of people think that, the dom has the power. And so if we're going to anthropomorphize nature in this way of, the totality, that which cannot be named is the dominant, and we as individuals are submissive, that I think, and maybe this is your point, that like the wave.
Who do you think makes the wave?
Well, according to the Vedas, there's only one thing and we're all it. And that one thing is consciousness. And the analogy is that we are all waves on this giant ocean of consciousness. So it is the ocean that makes the wave. But the ocean is the wave is the ocean. Individuality is totality. Totality is individuality.
It's a restatement of I am that I am.
Yes.
So therefore you are in control.
Because I am God pretending to be human?
Isn't that what you just said?
And I guess this goes to your point of like, what state of consciousness are we looking at it from? From the human space or from the more divine space?
Become more divine.
Correct.
Do you know about people who control the weather?
Yes.
It looks like nature's not in charge.
Or... sometimes I let my son pick out the food at the grocery store. And sometimes I let my son decide where we're going to go for dinner. Is he in charge?
That is a question that's probably been debated at a bunch of Tibetan monasteries. And I don't know if we know the answer to it. What I do know is that some people have a lot more influence and a lot more energy, a lot more resonance, and they do change the people around them. They do change the environment around them. And we all know someone walking into the room, it's a brighter place, and we don't know why. And our influence on others and on the environment around us is far greater than our bodies allow us to perceive. But is very, very potent. And this is why it's not okay to sit in a meeting and to put on the smile and to hate the person across the way from you, because that lack of congruence, well, it's expensive biologically for you, but it actually creates disturbances in the world. So being in congruence, another word for that would be authenticity. It's really important, but it's important for you and it's important for the world around you.
So this to me feels like, if we go back to the spiritual side of biohacking, like, yes, of course, we want to improve our health. We want to improve our sleep. We want to improve our sex, our immune systems, our skin elasticity, brain elasticity, all of that. But what I'm hearing is that baked into both the inception of this and the mission of this is this desire to elevate consciousness and shift the energetics through the biology.
Biohacking is a Trojan horse to make people more conscious. You want to know why it's inevitable?
Yes.
Okay. Here's how it works. Your body has quadrillions of mitochondria in it. Mm-hmm. Mitochondria are ancient bacteria that are embedded in most of the cells in your body. I want to have a little mitochondrial factoid for you about women in particular. But most of the time we think, oh, they're the power plants of the cells. We learned that in 7th grade. What mitochondria are...
I actually learned that from your book.
Did you?
Not in 7th grade.
Yeah. You were in the back of the class, obviously. So these little power plants, they're not. What they are is they're sensors and computers. That means that each one of those ancient bacteria that make up your meat, they're sensing the world around you and they're deciding what to do. And they can make heat, they can make electricity, they can make certain hormones and proteins like melatonin. They can even make sex hormones, right? You liked that.
My body is responding.
That's okay. I was picking it up. Mine does the same thing. So these ancient antennas, they have their own consciousness. Each individual mitochondria has a bacteria level consciousness, but it is alive and it is not you. And it votes with all of its little friends in a process called quorum sensing, and they vote with light. They make photons, and they vote with chemicals, inflammatory cytokines, and other either good or bad, we'll call them chemicals. And they have a third of a second to decide what reality is like, to respond to it, and then to tell you what you're allowed to hear or see or feel about it. And that third of a second, we can measure this. We do this at 40 years of Zen. It's called P300D, evoked potential. So when I snap my fingers, you like to think you heard it when the sound got to you. You heard it a third of a second after the sound got to you. And your body doesn't show you that there's a censorship window on reality. And that's where all of the trauma programming, societal programming, it shows up and it is designed to be invisible to your conscious brain.
Wait, we got to underline that. Your body has a censorship window on reality that is designed to be invisible.
Yes. It's just like when you're watching a live broadcast, if you still do that, there's an 8-second delay on it in case someone drops an F-bomb so they can bleep it out.
Or maybe a wardrobe malfunction and nipple exposure.
I like those better.
Okay. And so you're saying trauma responses, the way that we are experiencing reality is being filtered through this thing that is ultimately not us, this mitochondrial ancient bacteria.
It's the operating system of your body. And there's a word for that in spiritual tradition. It's called your ego.
You think that the ego is made up of the quorum of mitochondria?
The ego is an emergent behavior from mitochondrial networks trying to keep your body alive as if you're not in there. Here's the evidence for this. Since bacteria are really freaking stupid, they're also really fast. Our brains are very, very smart, but they're incredibly slow compared to light speed things. And if you've ever seen a cat moves in 30 milliseconds. That's its response time. We have 350 milliseconds. So a third of a second is our average lag time. If you're 18 or 19, it's a quarter second. And if you've hacked your brain like I have, it's still a quarter second. You can do that. Advanced meditators have a narrower window on reality. They perceive more. So what's happening then is something happens in the world. Your body decides what to do, decides how you're going to feel about it. Your conscious mind makes up a story about it, and you think it was you. And here's the prime example. You lean on a hot stove accidentally. And then you look down and you go, man, that's pretty hot. I guess I should move my... No one's ever done that. You jerk your hand away. You say, good thing I moved my hand before I got burned. You didn't move your hand. An automated system that's invisible to you moved your hand, and you took credit for the system. So what is a bacteria capable of doing? Here's the operating system for all life on Earth, and it directly explains your ego, and it explains a lot of consciousness too. And this is core to biohacking. It is all based on F words.
What kind of biohacking?
It's core to biohacking, like all of biohacking.
Like essential to.
Yeah, it's essential. And this is how reality works if you're a life form. And it doesn't matter if you're a tree, it doesn't matter if you're a slime mold like a politician, any of that. So
Some of them.
Some of them, fair point. I've some good ones out there. So, step 1. If something is scary, run away from, kill, or hide. you have to do this, otherwise you will get eaten. And there are lots of different strategies that nature deploys. Make a toxin on your skin, be good at fighting, have teeth or claws or bark or shells, whatever. But energy
same
goes
as like
there.
fight, flight, freeze, or different?
Yeah, it is. It's fight or flight or freeze. So run away from is flight, kill is fight, or hide is freeze. So all life will do those things first if there's a perceived threat, even if it's not real. Okay. Energy will flow there first. And a bacteria will do it, and a tree will do it, and a human will do it. It's inevitable, and it's automatic, and it's long before you have a chance to think about it and decide. And if you think you're thinking about it and deciding, it already happened. You're just taking credit for what your body did. Step 2, eat everything. Because famines destroy most life forms over time. So do I need to kill it, and can I eat it? Okay, these are very primordial things. That's fear, that's food. The third thing that all life has to do to stay alive forever, what would it be?
Fuck.
It is an F word. I usually say fertility, but I know you're a potty mouth. So.
I am not actually a potty mouth. I just don't see any reason to not say the F word.
I know you're not a potty mouth. I'm just teasing you. So fear, food, fuck. Okay, in order. Now, did that just explain everything you've ever done that you're ashamed of?
I guess, lying would be fear.
Yep.
Omitting truth would be fear. Not having hard conversations would be fear. Most of mine is fear. It's turning out.
Fear's it's the biggest, it's the first, it's the biggest, it's the most energy consuming, and it's the hardest to address. Okay, fear. And then food, you ever eat all the Ben and Jerry's?
Sure.
Okay, like there's times you're going, why did I just do that?
Yeah, I ate a half a pie once, an apple pie. I was high and I was like, you know what? Sounds like a good idea, eating the rest of this apple pie.
Exactly. And then you ever been on a date you shouldn't have gone on, but you did anyway?
Yeah. Or stayed in a relationship a few years after you.
That's probably more fear than fucking, unless it was really good.
Okay.
But so these are all of the egoic behaviors. They're mitochondrial survival behaviors, and they happen before you can think. And so understanding that a function of riding around in a human body is that your body will do these things if you are not aware and conscious and constantly vigilant. Right? The good thing, the saving grace that gives me hope for humanity and why biohacking is structured the way it is that after fear, after food, after fucking, what does life do? Friend. It supports its own species and the world around it in a beautiful, naturally ordained way. So we are wired in our bones, inside our cells, to be in community and to support each other.
Yeah.
And there's another F word that comes after that all life does. And I use forgive as that word. Another word that's maybe more generalized for life would be to evolve. And if you want to say, well, what do you mean animals would forgive? Forgiveness is a cognitive process. It's not. Forgiveness is a heart process. We just think it's a cognitive process. This is why people say, I forgave that person. And you're like, no, you didn't. We can feel you haven't. So how would a deer forgive? Well, you ever see a National Geographic? There's a lion hunting a deer, and the deer gets away. And it stands there, and it does this crazy shake. It's dropping all of its stress hormones. It's forgiving. It's letting go. It's surrendering. And then it eats grass, and it's done. What do? Our little monkey brains like to believe that we're in charge of everything, including our automated systems, which we're not. We ruminate. We get stuck on it. We play it again and again and again. Blame others. And we work really hard to make the world rational. We are riding inside bodies that are irrational, and we are rational beings. And it's that disconnect and the lack of understanding that creates so much stress and suffering and self-judgment. And understanding, your body wanted to do this, or your body did do this, but it wasn't you. It was your body.
And so if I extrapolate here, it sounds like the spiritual side of biohacking is understanding that much of our responses, the fear, the feeding, the fucking, the things that we think we are doing actually is a result of this mitochondria, this quorum of mitochondria, this non-conscious reaction or response. And so if we can take control or sovereignty or agency over the mitochondria, over the vessels that the consciousness is writing in, then we as humans have more agency as to how we want to interact with the external and interrealities, and then usher consciousness into a higher state.
Almost. Your mitochondria are conscious. They're not unconscious. It is a very conscious, distributed network throughout your body of antennas that are reading reality and actually manipulating reality too. Right? So it's conscious. It's just not you. And it doesn't like it that you're in there because its only job is to keep your body alive. And you get in the way of that. Right? And then we get really upset because we think, well, I should want to go to the gym. No, your body says, fear, no. Food, no. Well, if I go to the gym, I'll just need more food. I shouldn't go to the gym. The gym is really unattractive right now. Right? You know what would be more fun? Laying on the couch, better yet, laying on the couch naked with someone. Right? And it's always going to be more
eating
attractive.
Cookies.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with you for wanting to eat cookies and have sex all day instead of going to the gym. In fact, it's perfectly natural because the want comes from the body. It's not a thought, it's a feeling. We just think it comes from our mind.
So if you have ever thought, I am ready for more out of life, more energy, better sleep, deeper human connection, or simply the ability to handle stress like a total boss, then Ziva is for you. So at Ziva, we combine modern science with ancient wisdom to create tools that actually work. Because stress is costing you much more than you realize. It can steal your focus, drain your energy, and keep you from showing up as the human that you know you're meant to be. That's why over 60,000 high performers, CEOs, athletes, parents have turned to Ziva. Our programs don't just teach you skills, they help you master your life. They help you embody your highest potential. So whether you're brand new to this or ready to take your life and your practice to the next level, the best place to start would be Ziva meditation. So in just 15 minutes a day for 15 days, you're going to learn a practice that will remove stress from your body and transform the way you feel and function every single day. And right now, I'm going to give you a gift, 15% off, which you can use at checkout by entering the code WHYTHIS. So all you need to do is go to zivameditation.com, find the course that is right for you, because I'm so excited to share these tools with you. I've dedicated my whole life to refining these practices and making them as fun, attractive, and accessible as possible. So go to zivameditation.com and enter the code WHYTHIS on the course that feels right for you, and I will see you inside. So I very much operate under this philosophy that our desires are divinely inspired. And this theory would fly directly in the face of that.
Not in the slightest.
But I think that there needs to be a discernment here between what I would call this an addictive longing, right? Something coming out of fear or lack or like the mitochondria making the decision for the consciousness, which to me would be different from a divinely inspired desire, which is moving you towards something that you want to create. I think that meditation is actually one of the only things that allows you to be able to discern the difference between what I would call an addictive longing and then an intuitive desire. Because there might be a day where that is the highest good of laying in bed all day with your beloved and making love. That might actually be the thing that is called for, that would bring down the download or would manifest the thing or create the most healing.
There are egoic desires, and they map really nicely to the Buddhist hindrances or the 7 deadly sins. These are all...
I don't subscribe to the Buddhist. I think that according to the Buddhism, which is more, not all, but most sects are monastic. Sects?
Yeah.
Right?
Not all of them.
Not all.
Yeah, there's the whole Tantra side of things.
Well, I would say that's more from the Vedas. That's more
it does
Indian.
come from the Veda. If you go back to ancient Buddhist practice, there's a lot of kinky sex.
Right, but I think that's when you're at the same source point.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it's when you look at what I think a lot of Westerners have done is have fetishized monasticism.
Yeah.
And if I could just transcend my desire for sex, if I could transcend my desire for money, then I would transcend suffering.
You could just die more quickly.
Whereas I subscribe to the Vedas where it's like, oh, life is bliss, 24-hour bliss, 24-hour day bliss. That is your birthright. And the only thing keeping you from that is stress. And I think that we're actually pointing, like getting to the same thing, but from different POVs. Because like if you, in your terminology, what I'm extrapolating is that if you are hacking the biology and making friends with or knowing how to work with the mitochondria, that to me would be like, oh, you're getting rid of the stress in the nervous system in a way that they are starting to act in harmony so that, again, you get into a place of sovereignty or agency.
The only way you can perceive reality when you're in a human body is through your mitochondria. So they are a telescope. They're how you see and interact with the world. They're the frontline observers of reality, long before your brain could think. So when you were very, very young, say 2 cells in a womb, the mitochondria are active going, what do we need to do to make this body the most alive and the most able to survive, to pass on the genes of the species and things like that? There's, fear, food, fucking, friend, in order, right? So they're setting all of that stuff up. And is it any wonder that they aren't well programmed to understand that there's a conscious mind in there? Because your mind didn't really become that conscious until you were maybe 12 years old. You were spending most of your time floating in these dreamy states. So it's already formed, and it formed automated responses to the world around you. And now you're an adult and you have a beautiful, rational mind. You've attained some wisdom, and you're still running around with a sensor network that was created when you were 6 months old and when you were 2 years old and by the mean girls in 9th grade and all of that. And it's all in there, and it's invisible to you that it's influencing how you see reality. So the first step of meditation, as I've heard you say, is, notice the feelings. They're flowing through you. Set them aside. They are not you, or whatever the right language is, right? And I've gotten to the point, having done a lot of that work, that I believe there's great value to being able to do that. In fact, to function in the world, you need to do what
specifically?
To be able to recognize that you have a feeling, even a strong feeling, and to still behave yourself and do the right thing. Otherwise, you'd stand up in the middle of a board meeting and punch the guy in the face because he probably deserved it. But because you're a functioning adult, you're like, okay, I had the urge, I set the urge aside, and I behave myself, right? Behaving yourself means getting along in polite society so that we can all function. So that's one approach, and it works. And then there's another approach over time, as you become aware of these things, to just let the impact of them lessen over time. But they're still happening.
The impact of the urges?
Yeah, right. And so as you attain more discernment, more peace, more wisdom, all of the things, ideally you become less reactive. The approach that's worked best for me, and the one that I will teach people, involves going into an altered state and reprogramming the biological threat networks to shut the fuck up. Okay. It's the same thing as picking up your phone. Let's say that every app that wanted to alert you, you just let it do that. You can't use your phone. It's like TikTok here, Instagram here, Twitter, whatever. Like it just, you can't use it. Your subconscious has alerts going off all the time, and you never went through and turned them off. So the process of biohacking and interfacing with your mitochondrial networks to say, you know what, guys, instead of alerting me to all these dumb threats, hunger that isn't real because I'm not going to starve, I got plenty of food, lack of love in my life, even though there's plenty of love in my life, and loneliness, even though there's community, what would happen if I turned off those alerts because they weren't real? How much energy would I have? How much peace would I have? And where would the energy flow? So step one of biohacking, if you believe in these F words, they're like waterfalls. Okay, fear comes first, then comes food, then comes fucking, then comes friend, then comes forgiveness and evolution. So the first step is, let's turn up the amount of energy your body can make by combining 30 pounds of air and some food and maybe some sunlight. You turn these into energy. Well, if you have enough energy that you overcame the fear, overcame the hunger, overcame lust, and maybe turned it into a nourishing form of sacred energetic desire, you had enough energy left over for your community. And then you had enough energy left over to improve yourself at the end of the day. So just improving energetics through mitochondria, which all the supplements that I've made affect mitochondria in one way or another. But at the same time, if we could reduce the size of the fear bucket.
When you said 30 pounds of air, what was that referring to?
You breathe 30 pounds of air every day. That's where your energy comes from. It's air plus food equals heat, electrons, behavior, will, love, hate, responsiveness, sweat, tears.
So you're basically saying like all the energy that we're consuming as humans through our breath, through our cognition, taking that and working with, or even, I'm hearing you say, override the notifications that the mitochondria are giving us so that we have energy left over for forgiveness and evolution.
A lot of traditional meditation, the first step is to override that. And then it's first to become aware of it so you can override it, right? And then eventually to lessen the impact of it. And what I'm proposing in my book, Heavily Meditated, is that there are well-documented techniques from different disciplines that allow us to go in and reprogram our mitochondrial networks so that they're not responsive to things that aren't actually threats or hunger or like they're telling you stories. You're actually not alone if you're in a room full of people. But I have felt very lonely in a room full of people until I did my work, right? So the feelings are alerts that do not reflect reality.
Sometimes.
Right. Well, sometimes they do. Discernment is knowing when they're real versus when they're your story.
Yeah.
And there's a way to do that. Right.
So I'm quite sure that this audience is going to be very excited to read your book, Heavily Meditated, as am I. Is there a world where you could give us a window into, like, what does that look like? What does that reprogramming look like? Can you give us a taste of that?
Yes. And there's one more piece of knowledge that's helpful for this. You can program your body to be less responsive or even to be entirely untriggered by things that are not actual threats, right? That's step one. You can also program your mitochondrial networks to find the reality you want. Think about all of the things about manifesting, right? Well, if reality works by a consciousness observes something happening, and through the act of observing, it collapses a probability into a particle. This is the Schrodinger's cat, dual split quantum reality sort of thing. You are a fool if you believe your conscious human brain is the observer of reality, because I can show you with $2,000 worth of technology that your brain is not doing that. Your mitochondria are doing that. So what would happen if you program this network of quadrillions of antennas looking at reality all the time to find the reality you were looking for? That's what manifestation really is.
Yeah, that you're programming the filtration device. You're getting your hands on the wheel of the reticular activating system and or the mitochondrial triggers so that you're perceiving the external world through the lens that you desire.
What would happen if you generated an inherent sense of safety inside your field? So your mitochondria weren't worried about stuff that isn't a threat anymore, and you were feeling safe, and you were feeling surrendered, and you were conscious and aware, and you put your intention somewhere. Would the antennas in your body find that? I think they would. I think that's how it works. You might
start to make some magic in your life.
But that's how it works. Throughout history, all life is designed to evolve. And in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a lot of people have heard about this. We need a shelter and safety and food and all that kind of stuff. He died before his work was fully published, and the final step was transcendence. And this is something all life does. So your job is to be able to evolve. And to be able to evolve, it means stepping outside of a false reality created by your body not feeling safe, generate the safety, create the field, and then to be able to listen to the signal that's always there. And when you talk about divine guidance, or you talk about doing what you're supposed to do, that's where that comes from. So you can get an intuitive download or a hit that says, this is what I'm here to do. This is the right thing to do right now. This will heal that person. This will create a new state. That comes from very fine understanding and listening to what is an emotion versus what is an intuition. But to be able to get to that point, you've got to be able to drop enough fear, and you've got to be able to have enough energy. So a lot of this comes not just from millions of people biohacking, but from looking at brainwaves and doing very deep esoteric personal development work with 2,000 people with electrodes on their head for 5 days. So like, this is real. This actually works.
Yeah. And I'll just give a little pitch for this. I mean, I saw you and JJ Virgin and Vishen. I think you guys all did 40 Years of Zen around the same time. And I saw, I mean, I'm sure you had done it many times before, but I saw JJ and Vishen like dramatically shift from that point forward. And then also the evolution of how their development happened. It was wild. And my understanding, I've not done it personally, but the forgiveness is a huge part of that modality.
Yeah. Forgiveness is a trigger word for most people.
Because they think it means like weakening boundaries.
No, it's because your mom told you to forgive someone who wronged you, and you were forced to do it, and it didn't feel good. Because forgiveness is not a thought, it's a feeling, and you can't tell someone to have a feeling. They can only choose to have a feeling.
Forgiveness is not a thought, it's a feeling, and you can't tell someone to have a feeling.
Yeah. Like, how many times has someone told you to calm down? Did it ever?
I'm like, fuck you.
Did it ever work?
No.
Well, that's my evidence that you can't do that.
I know, like, please do not tell people who need to meditate to relax. It does not work. Stop doing that.
So it's just interesting that that's how our bodies are. So how would you go in and access your control systems? Well, via altered states. So in heavily meditated, I go through different lineages, different disciplines, and talk about directly how to change this. And
how to change what?
How to change your mitochondrial threat networks so that they are not triggered, so that you feel safe.
Safety in the body.
Yeah. So you can create the reality you want.
Yeah. And I'll just say that, like, from the work that I've been doing with sacred sexuality, like, obviously it brings up the most trauma, the most fear, the most shame, the most guilt, the most conditioning. Like, it's so, which is why it's so transformative, because the triggers are so big and so intense. But without safety, it's dangerous, actually. Because without the safety, then you can re-traumatize. But if you can first establish safety in the room, safety in the body, then the amount of transformation, the amount of alchemy with that level of creation energy is like nothing I've ever seen. But I just want to really highlight that the safety is step one.
The left-handed path of Tantra is not well known, but it's one that says, how do you find the sacred in everything, including sex?
Shit.
Right? And
trauma.
All of the
finding God where you thought it was not.
All of the scary stuff is to find the sacredness in that. And it's one of the fast paths of evolution, but it's not without risk. All of the fast paths, when they teach Buddhist meditation, all of them come with risk. Well, you might become enlightened in one lifetime or two, but you might also go crazy. So you just got to take the risk. And there's a guy who once said, I choose danger. Right. And it's not that I choose danger to be stupid, just I decide to take risks that are worth it. So.
Ooh, I love that. I decide to take risks that are worth it.
Yeah.
That feels like one of my theme songs of my life.
Right. And there's people who say safety first. I'm like, oh, so you don't want to evolve.
Yeah, because safety is maintenance. Yeah, and maintenance is a fast path to destruction.
It's an avoidance of any risk. And everything worth doing has a risk. It's just worth it. Like, who goes skiing? Oh, you might break a leg. You shouldn't go skiing.
Well, I just want to highlight that I just was a hypocrite, because I was just like cheerleading safety and saying it was a prerequisite to healing. And then I just said safety is maintenance and will lead to destruction. And so I think I want to discern what I meant between those two things. And that what I was talking about the first time is creating a sense of safety and well-being, letting the body know that it is not in danger when you're going into healing spaces. And then the other one was like choosing safety as an operating system in one's life, which I think over time can lead to stagnation or maintenance.
It turns out that avoiding risk isn't safe at all.
Yes. The ever-repeating known is the most dangerous place that there is.
Well, let's talk about safety. If you want to do any sort of sacred sexuality work, you must know how to create a very potent and clean field of safety. And some of this has to do with masculine and feminine energetics, but every human, whether you're a man or a woman, is capable of creating your own inner safety. And if you're walking around feeling triggered or unsafe, you can instantly replay a feeling of safety. And you can do this even if there's a big, mean man stalking you. And the second you replay the feeling of safety, you are now back in charge of yourself and you can deal with the threat. But as long as you sit in that, I'm scared, I don't know what to do energy, you are much more likely to be a victim, because predators hate prey that isn't afraid. So the more you can embody safety, whether it's in a edgy, sexual, energetic situation with a partner who you vetted, who is trusted, maybe it's, your husband or your wife, right? But you're saying, ooh, I'm feeling that I'm pushing an edge. Does that mean you should run away from the edge, or does it mean you should lean into the edge because there's learning there? If you are safe, if your partner is safe and you are safe, you can lean into the edge as far as you want to, and you can stop whenever you want to. And then you've expanded your consciousness. And it's one of the ways you turn off the threat networks. So in the context of things you were talking about before, if you have shame over something, and then you do it, and then you have a really powerful orgasm, what's going to happen?
It will be transmuted.
It'll be transmuted because your threat networks, the shame thing is just fear. And shame is fear that you'll be kicked out of the tribe and that lions and tigers and bears will eat you, right? This is why ostracism or canceling people is so painful. It pushes our threat networks. So you're worried, oh my God, I'm doing something that, my mom said wasn't okay. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And all the voices in your head, that's just your mitochondria telling you a story that you're not safe. And so you feel your partner is safe. You feel you're safe and you do it anyway. And you have an explosive orgasm. The brain waves and the state of your heart, your nervous system, and your brain are so polar opposite to the shame that they come together and it cancels out the shame. And you do that a few times and you're like, wow, I'm not ashamed of that anymore. And when I'm at 40 years of Zen with clients, we teach them something called the reset process. And this is the heart of Heavily Meditated, the new book. I'm doing my best to teach it to people without electrodes on their head. And it's that you replay the feeling of that time where you were bullied or you were unsafe, or the two biggest traumas are things like injustice or betrayal. Those are the two hardest ones. So, how did that feel? And you actually have to re-feel it in your body, because we have the ability to replay any emotion we've ever experienced, whether it was cuddling with puppies or a state of terror. And when you replay it, you don't think about it, you feel about it. It's like, what did your gut do? What did the hairs on the back of your head do? And you replay that and go, ew, that was gross. And you do that for about 2 minutes. So now your body's in the state of someone who is traumatized. And then you flip over to step 1, which is gratitude. It's not forgiveness. Doing forgiveness without gratitude doesn't work. So gratitude is the spark that lights the fire. So now you're saying, okay, maybe you're working on teaching your body that it's okay to drive because you've been in a bad car accident. Like, that's a big deal, right? You might have died. And most people who've dealt with this, like, they were in the hospital for a while, right? So, okay, now I'm feeling all that pain and fear and terror and right? And then curiosity happens when you start looking for gratitude. What was one good thing that came about from the car accident? It doesn't matter if it's the tiniest little thing. I lived. Okay, that was it.
I met a super hot nurse.
There you go. And it turns out masses of wonderful things happen from the worst things. Our ego tells us not to see or remember those things, but they are present. And once you find one, all of a sudden your nervous system goes, wait, I was in a state of terror, but I got something. And now you've hooked it. And then you go into forgiveness, which is a process that I describe more in the book. And the idea of forgiveness is that you see it from the other person's point of view. And instead of developing empathy, which you can use if you want to, empathy is generally toxic. It's just better than not having empathy. You step through to compassion, where even though someone wronged you, you realize they wronged you because of their parenting, because of whatever happened in their life, and that had nothing to do with you. Even though it felt like it had something to do with you, that's not real. And you're like, oh, it would so suck to be that person. I feel compassion for them. And then you forgive them and you realize we're all one anyway. And it turns out when you go from a negative emotion or a painful emotion to gratitude or awe works too. And then you go into this exalted state of compassion and connection, it will permanently erase the pattern. So now you have a memory of something, but you don't have the emotional response to it.
Wow.
And it's so much more effective than that old, Buddhist way. Well, sit here for 20 years in a cave and just allow the emotions to just keep flowing through. No, I have shit to do with all that electricity.
I got kids. I got a company to run. Yeah. We're not on the monk program.
Right. And we have a world to improve. There's a lot of problems to fix.
Quickly.
So this pattern works. And of course, we can do it with neurofeedback. But what are the other ways? in Heavily Meditated, I go through and I talk about all of the ways that are known, at least that I could find. And I've done a lot of work on this. So I think I've found all of them, if not almost all of them. And one of them, surprisingly, is meditation. Another one that amplifies meditation, this won't be a surprise, is breath work. Breath work works better than meditation alone.
For what? For the reprogramming?
For reprogramming. In fact, almost every exalted state, until you get very high in the spiritual teachings, they're about going inward and experiencing either your inner state or the world around you from the perspective of your body. Right?
Yeah.
This is shutting down the default mode network. So meditation and breath work, those are older technologies, and especially with breath work, it works. And this is why you see the Vedic breath work, and you see most traditions have something like that. And
when you're saying breath work, are you talking about like doing like a breath work ceremony, or are you talking about like sort of like a preparation for the meditation, or both?
Both.
Yeah.
And it can go from holotropic breath work. And for listeners who haven't heard of that, the guy who pioneered LSD psychotherapy when it was legal in the 50s, his name's Stan Grof. And he invented holotropic breathwork. In fact, he and his wife did. And he's still alive. And I did a breathwork event with him for a couple hundred people about 8-9 years ago. And he uses breathwork to replace LSD because you trip balls from that form of breathwork.
For sure. On our retreats, we do breathwork, and it is like wilder than any ayahuasca ceremony I've ever sat in.
I've seen more past lives from breathwork than I have, or from either breathwork or neurofeedback, have done far more than any medicine.
Your own past lives or other people's?
My own.
Yeah.
I don't usually see other people's unless I was in it with them, and some of my closest friends I've known before. Yeah.
Shaman Durek. Yeah, in our ceremonies, there's always a maternity ward. There's at least one section of the room that's either rebirthing themselves, going through their birthing of their children. It's really so profound and beautiful.
It is profound and beautiful, and you realize that everyone in the room has been a mother and died in childbirth, and everyone in the room has been a baby who died during childbirth, and we've all been fathers, and we've all been warriors, and we've all been everything, and that sounds so unlike anything I would have said as a computer science guy in my 20s. Growing up in an atheist family, I just call it like I see it. I have directly experienced all of these things, and I'm not alone. In fact, all of spiritual literature around the world talks about this pretty consistently, and it takes a huge act of ego to throw all of that away and say it doesn't matter. Like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel really grateful to have this window in. And I also want to say, like, thank you for taking this technology that's been happening in 40 years of Zen. I've seen the transformative powers of it and translating it into this book and giving people tools where they don't have to go away for 5 days, where they don't, a lot of people can't make that investment right now. And so, like, giving that sense of safety, allowing people to reprogram this, I feel like the ripple effect of this is going to be really profound.
It's designed that way. And there's 2 more forms I want to share with you that I think that you and your audience will
2 more forms of reprogramming and creating safety.
Yeah.
Great.